This is the Rebel Scum Podcast. Available in video on YouTube and audio wherever you listen to your podcasts. Every week, Brock and James talk the latest rumors, news, and theories from a galaxy far, far away. Support us on Patreon for exclusive offers and join the Star Wars discussion. Patreon.com/RebelScumPodcast. Here are your hosts, Brock and James.
You are always scum. Rebel scum.
Rebel scum, indeed. And James, I'm alone, solo today. Hi, Heidi. How's it going? Got to talk some Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 4. If you haven't seen it, it's Chapter 20. I believe it's Chapter 20. If I could do my math properly, I'm not a mathematician, but I believe it was Chapter 20. Watched it today. So if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you don't listen to what I'm about to say. Stay away from me. It was not perfect. It was too short, says Vermont Mike. Hello, Mike. Hello, Dale. General Dale Obi. Yes, it was short, but I'm going to be honest with you. I absolutely loved that it was this short. Now, I did not love that it was short in the sense that I always want Star Wars to continue going and going and going. But I love that it was the perfect length that this episode needed to be, right? It never felt to me like it was dragging. It started, there was a middle, and it ended, and that's it, move on. Now, I could always go for more, don't get me wrong. But I love this episode. This is episode, like I said, 4, whatever. And I couldn't wait to talk about it. So I wanted to come on here. I want to talk about it. Hopefully you guys comment in the chat, live chat, comment below, whatever your thoughts on it as well. Because you never know what you're getting with Mandalorian this season, right? This season's been a mixed bag. I've enjoyed all of it, but it's kind of felt like pieces of a puzzle that have been kind of sprinkled in. And now it's kind of like, now I kind of feel like the puzzle is settling a little bit and we're enjoying the ride. Where it's almost, maybe it's more like Lego than a puzzle. Lego's kind of like a puzzle but with blocks. But anyway, it feels like we're all around there a little bit. So I really want to get into it because a few things happened that, for me, as a Star Wars fan of 40 whatever years, that I really wanted to talk about and get into. Because one character that I've always loved. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, I'm going to give you a second now. Okay, you got a second. So one character that I've always been a fan of, and I just talked to somebody, I think it was Friday, about this character that I've been a fan of, and most people my age have not been a fan of this character. A lot of younger fans have been, and older fans can't stand the character for the most part, but that's Jar Binks. Everyone knows where I'm going with this. I've always been a Jar Jar supporter. One of our very first episodes of this podcast, it might have been the 4th episode, maybe it was a little later, we did our top 5 Jar Jar moments. Fantasia was a guest on that one. There was a top 5 Jar Jar Binks moments. I loved Jar Jar Binks 5 whatever years ago when the Phantom Menace came out. I loved Jar Jar Binks then. I didn't know what the hate was. There was a moment in my like mid to late, probably late 20s, maybe early 30s, where I was like, okay, I kind of get why people were annoyed with Jar Jar. But I was always a fan. I liked the character, and I was kind of always bummed out what they did to the character and kind of minimize his role in the prequels. I mean, obviously he has a big role and blah, 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 but I just, you know what I mean? Like, screen time is what I'm talking about. The other thing that I absolutely love in Star Wars is Attack of the Clones, which is something that I've talked about often. Even yesterday I said that was the first one where I was like, yeah, I'm a little disappointed. Over time, I love it. When I think of Star Wars, I think of that speeder chase with Anakin and Obi-Wan and Zam Wessel. Zam Wessel, shout out, underrated Star Wars character. Absolutely love Zam Wessel. So this episode of Mandalorian seemed to just have everything that I, as this kind of fan, wanted. Greedily. I'm greedy. I wanted this. Now, obviously, we didn't get Jar Jar Binks, but we got Ahmed Best playing Dale. You know, I'm sure. I'm sure Dale knows Creakin. It's like Creakin Beck or something. Creakin Beck. Here's the thing. So Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar Binks, gets to play. Everyone's wondering who rescued Grogu, and Grogu's thrown into an elevator shaft, I guess, and then it opens, and there's a Jedi, and of course that Jedi is Ahmed Best playing Krekon Beck or whatever, and he's like, I'm here to save you. I'm here to rescue you. You know, you're a little bit short for a yodeling. So he rescues him, and I was like, oh, that's nice. That's a nice nod. Is he going to die in 2 seconds and ship him off to the next person? Turns out that doesn't happen. Not only does it not happen, Krekon Beck, Dale, you're not helping me out here. Krekon Beck is still alive at the end of the episode, like still flat out alive somewhere in the galaxy. Probably dead by the time period we're at now. Obviously, he's no longer with Grogu at this point. He's long gone, I would guess. But not only does all this happen, not only is he alive, we get a speeder chase a la Attack of the Clones. It reminded me of that. Now, when there are parts of Revenge of the Sith, obviously, that really came out, but this was a very much for me an Attack of the Clones moment where he's speeding through Coruscant, and I really felt that it took me right back to 24 years ago and all that, and I absolutely adored that 2 weeks in a row we're back on Coruscant. 2 weeks in a row we get this, and I'm like, this is Star Wars. We're back in Star Wars. We're back in the Star Wars fold. It's for me, and maybe the reason why I'm nostalgic for the prequels is because I saw the special editions of the original trilogies in the 90s, but the prequels were the first Star Wars movies that I saw for the first time in the theater. So there's always that's Keller and Beck. Thank you very much. Grogu ended up on a game show for kids on YouTube. That's absolutely true. And so maybe that's it. But there's that whole chase where they're on like the Darkwing Duck motorcycle and Baby Yoda's on the sidecar. I loved it. But even beyond that, what they did for Ahmed Best, who spent the better part of at least a decade being dismantled and bullied and whatnot by fans, giving that actor the opportunity to be a kick-ass, badass Jedi and survive Order 66 and take out clones and have 2 lightsabers. This is, I think, Lucas aside, I think that is just respect. I think it's respect, and this is what I like to talk about Brock, and I won't put words in anyone else's mouth, but it's how Favreau and Filoni are like here, and they respect and I think appreciate the past, and they respect and they appreciate the future, being the sequels in the Star Wars universe. I think they respect and appreciate all. They might not like all of it. They might not even like Jar Jar Binks. But the reality is that all that exists in this world, and this is an actor who portrayed a role the way he was hired to portray a role. And so the fact that they let him in and to do that and be this kick-ass Jedi was just absolutely phenomenal. Now I'm going to read the chat here. Heidi says, Dale, I think either Padme or Jar Jar sent the ship. Yeah, because Dale, you mentioned that the people was wondering if Padme called the ship to the rescue. Jedi from the Temple of Beck and Grogu are the only ones that make it to the ship. And the ship was very similar to Amidala's ship as well, right? It wasn't the exact ship, but I think it was very similar. I'm a bigger fan. My favorite of all the Queen's ships is the Phantom Menace. I have a little die-cast of it. That's my favorite of all the Queen's ships in the prequels. But I really like the one they were in this one. And of course, Attack of the Clones gets blown up, so you can't use that one at all. And then Dale says maybe Jar Jar connected with Keller and Beck through the Force and guided him to rescue the. Oh, Dale, don't go there. Do not go there. I mean, look, I don't mean Jar Jar is probably out of the equation. I said yesterday on the live show that I personally would love Jar Jar to return, and we get this, and this might be the closest we get to Jar Jar returning in Star Wars, right? This could be the closest we get to Jar Jar, because the thing with Jar Jar is there's still the element of goofiness to him that I'm not sure they want to touch yet, and that's really the vocals, right? The voice is what they might not want to touch, but you bring it on the best, and I just the appreciation and respect I have to give him that role, and then up it with that kick-ass scene, and then have him on his killer speeder chase, and then have him survive and get on the ship and fly. Like, it's just phenomenal. Like, everything about that was like it was necessary to Grogu's plot. I know people are like, we don't want to see Order 66 again. Shut up. You have to. It's Star Wars. This is part of the past. This is how it is. And yes, Nubian. And so it was wonderful to see. It was wonderful to get the actor that they got to do it. And it took me back. It felt seamless to the thing that's phenomenal that no one's talking about, because everyone's either bashing the volume or praising the volume. But what's happening with this show, and Andor is still the best looking Star Wars show, possibly the best Star Wars show, whatever. All that is, I'm not, this is not what I'm talking about. But what we're getting here is the Mandalorian has perfectly, seamlessly inserted itself in the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. When it needs to look like a prequel, it looks like a prequel. When it needs to look like an original trilogy, it looks like the originals. And it does it flawlessly. It's like flawless execution on it. And I don't think that's getting talked about enough. Like when they do the prequel stuff, when they go to Coruscant last week, when they go to last week, I mean, might have been a little bit jarring because we went boom, boom. But this one, because it was a flashback, we just like suddenly went in and it never felt out of place. It doesn't feel like it's part of a different story. It feels like it's part of this universe. And I got to give them kudos because when you watch the prequels and the OT, it's like there's that big difference, right? They're very different from each other in look and style. And for me, it's always been, well, the Empire kind of destroyed the galaxy, and that's what made it look all used and whatnot. And this show has really just kind of been perfect for me in every way. Heidi says, Misa Jar Jar Binks, Misa here to rescue you. That would have been phenomenal. Imagine if they stuck with Jar Jar Binks as that. That would have been possibly the greatest moment ever. But I am glad it was on my best. Dual lightsabers, unbelievably kick-ass. Dale, have a great night. Thanks for joining us here. I got all the Google answers, and I've read your stories, Dale. We got to talk about that soon. I want you on an Outlander Club. Speaking of which, we're going to be recording an Outlander Club with a special guest coming soon, so that'll be up. Like I said, there's a lot of cool stuff happening on this channel and Digital Charcuterie. We're going to start going back to pumping out, hopefully, fun, entertaining shows, mostly podcast style. Unleashed will probably just be like me alone. We'll do Flying Casual again, where we'll have Patreon. And now we're also offering, if you don't want to go Patreon, you can be a channel member on YouTube if you want to do that instead of Patreon. Then we're going to have different groups there. We'll have everyone on Patreon will get the link, and then different groups on YouTube will get the link as well. And we'll do Flying Casual, and we'll talk about whatever we talk about, and we'll get into it. Because we got like Star Wars is at an all-time high now. Like there's going to be lulls, but I think in between the lulls now, we're going to get the excitement of Ahsoka, lull. Skeleton Crew, lol. Acolyte, lol. I think it's going to work like that. So I'm not concerned about running out of things to discuss here. The Scuttlebutt's here. Hello, nerds. We're going to just spend the next hour praising Kathleen Kennedy, who has done a phenomenal job in every department of everything Star Wars has ever needed from Kathleen Kennedy. And I'm going to go back to this episode of Mandalorian because all that Ahmed Best stuff was for me great as the old Jar Jar fan who nobody can ever believe that I like Jar Jar, but I had the Phantom Menace Monopoly and that's who I chose. It was great to see him like just be the hero because we needed that from Grogu, and then obviously, you cast to do that. Now let's talk about the Mandalorian of it all. After all, it is called the Mandalorian. Who is the Mandalorian? Maybe it's just a race. I feel like I said this I think yesterday or maybe it was last week, where I kind of feel like the show ended in season 2. Like the Mandalorian show ended. Grogu shipped off to Luke. Luke goes bye-bye with Grogu, and then they came back. Right? It's like when Perfect Strangers moved out of the apartment into the other house. This is kind of like where we are now. We're on a spin-off of it in some respects. So that's how I kind of feel where we are now. Like the one story's over, we're on to this new story, and it's a bigger story, a much grander story. And this episode was called The Foundling. When it started, because at first I was like, oh, it's going to be about that kid. I thought it was going to be about the kid, and it ended up obviously being about that kid. But then when it started, I was like, oh, is this going to be about Grogu? And I really felt like it was going to be Grogu at the beginning, the way they're doing it. And then he had that weapon, what is it, Singing Birds, whatever that weapon's called. That, I saw it and I said, oh my God, the toys. I would put that as an ornament on my Christmas tree. Grogu with his little weapon. And of course, using the Force and whatnot, and then his moment with the armorer. They are building to something with Grogu and the Mandalorians. And I think, Heidi, you might be onto something. I think it is what we've always kind of joked and speculated about half-heartedly. I think it might be going in that direction. Who even knows? It was a prequel redemption episode. Heidi is saying in the chat, a prequel redemption. That's what a lot of it felt like. It felt like it's kind of going like, hey, because when Disney purchased Star Wars, the prequels were hated almost, right? Like I mean, it was 7 years out. No, yeah, 7 years out of Revenge of the Sith. They weren't really loved too much. But as time goes on, they're more and more beloved because of the nostalgia reason, because the kids back then are growing older, and I think they're doing a great job of readjusting their strategy of Star Wars to incorporate more of the prequels. Now, if we ever get another Star Wars theatrical film ever, I'm curious to see how they're going to approach that, because in The Force Awakens, obviously there were all the flags and the pod racing flags that were wiped out, and Paz Vizsla is Jimmy Kimmel's nephew, and Scarif is confirming it. So I need one more source to confirm it, and I'll put that to print. That's good for Jimmy Kimmel's nephew. Why not take that role? Who doesn't want to be in Star Wars? And if you're Jimmy Kimmel, use it. Go all the way. This episode with I love the creatures in this show. By the way, did anyone else get the Jurassic World vibe at the end of the episode? Was that 100? Like, did Colin Trevorrow come in to ghost direct the ending of the episode with the dinosaur and the sea dinosaur, whatever it's called, the Motobufu, that thing coming up to kill the pterodactyl bird? Where are we going with that? Mandalorians are obviously, I mean, they're going to obviously age and they're going to fly them at some point. I got to be honest with you. I'm kind of cool with that. I was kind of like, all right, let's do it. They looked like they were out of like the John Goodman Flintstones movie, and I was still okay with that. I was like, yeah, they fit in with the blurred look, so I was kind of fine with that. I don't know if anyone knows what those creatures are called. If you do, let me know. Space Peter would not be happy with this series. Not at all. They Baby Yoda attacking that one creature, and then the Mythosaur. Something's happened with that Mythosaur and Bo-Katan. So is Bo-Katan going to rule Mandalore? Like, is actually going to rule Mandalore? What's going on? There's so many twists and turns. Not like dramatic twists and turns, but fun twists and turns. And I feel like when Favreau said he hadn't figured out the ending of the series yet, and everybody was kind of concerned. Hey, Kayla, everybody was kind of concerned. I think I'm not so much anymore. I think I would have been, especially after like Rise of Skywalker, where it's like you need to have an ending. And I think Favreau had an idea of it. Maybe it was a Luke Skywalker thing. I don't know. But I think the idea of I think he's got a solid foundation, a solid idea of what he wants to do with the series, kind of like George Lucas had with maybe the Clone Wars or the original trilogy, where he's like, I kind of want to do this. And then when the time comes, he'll wrap it up. And I think because of the grasp that he has on the characters and the situations and their surroundings, I think he'll find a way to tie it up in a neat little bow, or botch it like Seinfeld. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I do have faith, though, that even though the ending is not planned, that it will wrap up in a place where it needs to. The spin-offs, I don't know, obviously, but I kind of have that sense from the way this season's going, and I know, it's been hit with ups and downs, but this season, for me, more than the past two, I really think this is going to be a sum of all of its parts season. I don't think it's going to be one that you can judge until we get the whole thing. I mean, it's fair to judge them individually. Obviously, it is a TV show, so if you find one that was lackluster, like I enjoyed the first two episodes, but I still thought they cut off too soon. Like they went and then they just kind of stopped. And you're like, it wasn't even like a cliffhanger. They just stopped, and those were my critiques of those ones. This episode, being 29, 30 minutes, whatever it was, it still felt like it was a full episode to me. I didn't feel like it needed more. Obviously, I want more, like I said. It didn't feel like it needed more, though. It felt like everything that it wanted to do, it did. And I thought it did it very well. I thought some of the directing was handled great. I think this was Carl Weathers doing it. I really enjoyed it. I got the 60s Batman was all over the place in this, which I love. And for me, like I said, Andor, definitely the best looking show we've gotten, but there is a certain charm for me with the look that we're getting in this. And that kind of goes into the prequels, or the prequels in the original trilogy, how they can go in and out of them almost seamlessly for it. It's not always perfect. I'm not saying that, but there is a certain charm to it that I get. Like when you go back and you watch the old shows, it's not always perfect, but they're fun and there's something going on there. It does look, the Coruscant stuff does make me want to go back and watch more Andor, and I think I'm going to, because for me it's fantastic. Heidi says, I have expected a deepfake Sammy Davis Jr. to stick his head through a crevice in the mountain and ask why they were climbing it. I would have been all on. Could you imagine Billy Crystal coming back as Sam? Well, I don't think you get away with that now. Billy Crystal coming back as Sammy Davis Jr. in Mandalorian, and he puts on a helmet, and this is the way. That would be. I love Sammy Davis Jr. By the way. If you haven't read Sammy Davis's book, Why Me, read it. Phenomenal book. It's just wonderful. Great book. He was such an entertainer. I don't know if you guys sidetracked. Sammy Davis Jr. Rat Pack. Big fans. Big fans. This episode was wonderful, as always. And is it just me, or does Bo-Katan's costume look, there's something about it that looks significantly better this season? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm overthinking. But I think it might be the cinematography, the lighting on it. There's something about it that it just looks solid. Maybe she's wearing it more. I don't know. I'm really in on it. I haven't exactly figured out her plot yet, like what she is hoping to gain. Obviously, the mythosaur is a big thing, and the why I'm tempted not to go down any paths with what her ultimate plan is because this show kind of even like all these Star Wars shows, they've kind of taken what you kind of expected and then like pulled the rug and been like, we're actually going to go in that direction, and it's not always like a big twist or even what you want, but they seem maybe Obi-Wan didn't really do that, but they seem to like do that where they steer you in a direction. And I mean, Andor was the king of it, right? You're like, he got arrested. What the hell just happened? He gets arrested halfway through the series. So they kind of have this idea of kind of taking you where you think you want to go. My internet working flawlessly. I live in the woods and it's raining out. I guess that might be a problem. What would you guys rate this episode out of 10 if you had to rate it out of 10? Guys, everyone in the chat, what would you rate it? Because I said 15 out of 10 on Twitter, but I'm a prequelist, is what they used to say about prequels people. I love it, but I also love, and I said this yesterday, I was never a big Mandalore fanatic in the Rebels days, but I kind of grew on it. 6 out of 10. Scarif, you're so negative. I'm just joking. No, I guess you are very harsh. I know. We should get together and discuss it one day because I just want to hear why you hate my opinions on everything. I can understand. I haven't actually asked my wife what she thought of it. I think she liked it. She liked that it was short because we have a 6-month-old who was like really fussy while we were watching it. But lots made me smile. Yeah, which I think at the end of it, I think this whole season is something that when it ends, that's when we're going to judge it more so. But it is fair to be let down by an episode or to be excited by an episode, obviously. But it really feels like we won't know until it's over. It's like Andor, right? Like the first episode of Andor was fine, but when you had all the first 3 episodes together, you're like, okay, what's up? And that's kind of how I am with this show, where it's like, okay, something's going on. Maybe they should just make movies about Star Wars characters. Maybe. I don't know. It feels like that's where Star Wars, I love the TV stuff. I love episodic too, don't get me wrong. But maybe it's time to give me a theatrical Mandalorian movie if you want to go this big. I don't know. Just saying. Anything else anybody loved or hated? Okay, Scarif, what was it that you didn't like in the episode? I want to know that, and then maybe I'll talk about that and then go to sleep. Yeah, I should say what you said so that everybody knows. So you said that after Andor, going back to regular Star Wars will be difficult for you. The helmet is more proportional to the body size. Okay, that makes more sense. So to your point, yes, going from Andor to this, I can see that Andor didn't look. How do I say it? Andor was beautiful. It was, and also, I mean, obviously, you are older, and it was more mature. You definitely got that. It never felt like it was talking down to you. It had this different vibe, and I know exactly what you're saying. I separate them almost in a way, but it is. I think it's last week. A lot of people said it felt like an Andor episode, but it really didn't in the fact that it did because of where they were and some of the discussions, but it was definitely on like a smaller. Yes, older. We're not 12. Uh, but there is something more, and there always has been. It's more juvenile about the Mandalorian. There's always has been. So it is kind of going back and forth. It's like going from like Sopranos to, I was going to say My Cousin Vinny, but I don't think that's fair. I'm wondering if Grogu was eventually handed off to another Mandalorian after Jar Jar rescued him, and that's why he bonded with Din. Well, he gets saved by Death Watch, right? Grogu, or no, Din got saved. I've never seen the show. Yeah, you might be right. I mean, maybe that's why he does. Especially if it was Boba Fett, that could be it. I'm not. Who knows? Like, Ahmed Best, Cregan Beck is still alive and well out there. At some point, you've got to think he's gonna get slain or something, and then pass him along to somebody else, or he passes him. I kind of feel like what they're going to do is they're going to pass Grogu off to somebody else, and Breckin Meyer is going to stay alive in the galaxy, and then maybe we'll get a spin-off show of Ahmed Best. That would be wild. Two lightsaber best. That would be. Something. I don't think we're going to get that, but that I'm not sure though. I don't know if they're going to kill him off because I can see them keeping that character alive. Now, again, for me, it's why are there so many Jedi alive when we get to Return of the Jedi, or like why are all these Jedi alive in the galaxy? Would love to have you guys on schedule. Yeah, we should totally let's chat in the later on. But I'm going to wrap this up. I've been talking alone for a half hour almost, and you know, I said, look, I just wanted to come on because as someone who has been a Jar Jar Binks supporter, the old guy being the Jar Jar Binks supporter, it was nice to see that moment. I really had a lot of fun with this episode. 15 out of 10 for me. I am easily entertained when it comes to Star Wars. Other things, not so much. But Star Wars, you got me. I do agree, though. Andor, I think, yeah. I mean, Andor set this bar so high on certain things that you almost have to take a step back and unfairly, I suppose, forget it. And Grogu is Favreau's Ahsoka. You could be right. Maybe we'll get Grogu forever. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Give us a like and a subscribe and blah, 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 all that fun stuff. It's awesome to have you in the chat. Doing this Scared Less Talk for sure because it's because one thing, and we joke online, but sometimes, it's fun to be positive, but you don't always like everything. And Kathleen Kennedy is the best at her job. All right, everybody, thank you so much for, I don't even, honestly though, I don't know. I don't work with her or the business. Everybody, thanks for watching. Have a good night. May the force of others be with
Bags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video.